Okay, happy Friday. Today I want to talk about checklists because that's what I was talking about on the blog this week. Specifically, how checklists make my life better and how checklists can make your life better. So, I was thinking about when I started using checklists because I haven't always written everything down. I haven't always been someone who's so strict with a to-do list and things like that. But I think probably within the last year, I've become a lot more diligent about writing things down. And one of the reasons for that is that my brain works so much better when I actually get stuff out of my head and onto paper. And when I actually write it down on paper, just the action of writing it down cements it in my brain more. So sometimes I don't even have to look at the list. I just know what my next move is or what I have to do because I remember writing it down. So knowing that really works for me has helped me to make sure that I'm using checklists a lot more. Currently, and I shared this in the blog post, I have a few checklists that I use. The to-do list being one of them, but I use checklists for other things like big goals that I have for my life and for my blog and getting them down and really getting excited about being able to cross some of that stuff off. I have goals for the next decade of my life and what I want to accomplish. So I've made a list of those. So I've kind of made checklists a little bit more exciting for myself. They're not necessarily just the regular to-do list. So one of the reasons that I think that lists are so important, and I kind of mentioned this, is because it helps to get all that overwhelming stuff out of your brain. I know when I have a ton of stuff to do, I tend to procrastinate if I'm not really sure where to start. So one of the first steps I usually take when I feel overwhelmed with everything I have going on is I take a piece of paper out and I just write down everything I have to do. I try to get it all out of my mind onto the paper. And just that act alone calms my brain down and helps me to be able to focus. And then if I have to sort it out, the list into different areas of my life, I do that. But most likely I then feel motivated to start with whatever I have to do first because I've gotten it out of my head. I'm not feeling so paralyzed with overwhelm and I can get moving. So that's one of the reasons that I love checklists. And I think if you're somebody who gets overwhelmed easily, if you're somebody that has a lot going on in your life, taking that time, because I know one of the excuses people say a lot of times is, but it's going to take me time to write things down, or it's going to take me time to get all that out of my head. And even if it's just 10 minutes out of your day, that's going to make such a big impact on what you're able to get done and what you're able to focus on for the rest of the day. So I want to get started in sharing with you some of my lists that I have. The first one is something that I mentioned. That is well, first of all, I'll share with you. I love clipboards, so I use clipboards for a lot of things. So I have this clipboard full of lists, and this actually sits on my kitchen counter. So the first list that I have here is my master to-do list. So what I put on here are big projects that I want to accomplish, little things that I have to do throughout the week, like if I have to get paperwork into the school, if there's anything that I want to do regarding, let's see, I'm trying to think here, like an event for the kids, I have to sign them up for something, so I have that on here. I want to get a better grasp over our finances, so I have that on here as one of the things that I'm going to do is to download some worksheets that I want to use and work on that. But then I have other things like clean through toys in the bedroom and clean up the basement. So like I said, this is really where that thought download goes of everything that's going on in my head goes on my master to-do list. And then from there, I grab from this, and this is also part of my weekly planning. I grab from this and this is not fancy, I create this daily to-do list. So basically I just put on here, I have Monday through Thursday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the back. And I grab tasks from my master list and I add them to my weekly list. So there's some things on my weekly list that I just do every day. So I have them on here too. They might not be on my master to-do list. Like I have a laundry system. So every day I have whose laundry is going to get done that day. If I have a chore for cleaning the house, that goes on my daily to-do list. So I grab, like I said, everything from my master checklist, which is comprised of all those thoughts that are overwhelming in my head, all those tasks. I put them down on my master to-do list, and then I move them to my weekly or daily to-do list for the week. And then, so those are two of my lists that I keep. Like I said, I keep these on the kitchen counter. And then I also have on here my morning routine checklist for myself. This helps me in the morning to make sure that I'm getting done everything I need to do to set the day up nicely for not only myself, but for my kids. So this is my checklist that I go through every morning. And this is actually, I shared this morning on my Facebook page. So if you're interested in downloading this for yourself, you can find that there. So even though I do the same thing every morning, I find if I don't have it written down, I tend to be standing there aimlessly in the kitchen wondering what I should do next, or kind of just wasting time. So it's nice to have it written down so I can look at it and see what my next step is. So that is all the list that I have on my clipboard. The next list that I'll share with you is, I'll share with you also, I have this morning routine checklist for kids. So this is the actual checklist that my son, who's 7, he goes through this every morning to get ready for school. So he's starting to get used to lists, and truth be told, he doesn't love it, but it has helped him to create great habits. He basically can get through this without even looking at it anymore, which is really, in my mind, is a win, because he knows everything that needs to get done before he can go out the door. And then the next list that I have is and I keep that in here. I love this notebook. I'm obsessed with notebooks. I don't know if any of you out there are, but I think I got this at Burlington. I can never not get a notebook when I go through their checkout line. They always have cute ones there. So on this one, I keep my, like I talked about earlier, and I have this in my blog post too. These are all my big goals. So I have my big blog goals and my personal goals, and I don't really have a timeline on these lists, but they're basically things that I like to think about to get my mind going and to start to feel like I can focus on what I really want for my blog and for my life. So like some of the personal goals I have are travel goals, like go on an Alaskan cruise. And for my blog, I have stuff on here like start weekly Facebook Live to discuss routines and stuff, which I've been doing. So I try to rewrite these lists every week just so I can keep them fresh in my mind. So I keep them in this pretty notebook. And then the next list that I want to share is not a fun list, but it's essential to our family, and it is the grocery list. So this isn't very pretty either, but this is how it is. So I have my meal planning here, and then my groceries, what I have to get at the grocery store. I break it down by department here. So I keep this, I make this list every week for myself. I actually made this morning, so I'll be going grocery shopping this afternoon. So this is, and I keep it in this pretty notebook that I take with me to the store. So grocery list makes my life so much easier. I avoid having to make numerous stops at the grocery store, and I know what I'm having because of meal planning. So I can actually, when I'm doing my weekly planning, put into each day what we're going to be having for dinner. And then the last list that I want to share with you is I keep that list in this really big, pretty notebook too. And this is, and I'm not really going to share some of these or share this list specifically with you because some of these goals are very personal to me and I'm not necessarily ready to share some of them right now, but they're the goals I have for the next decade of my life. So to be very truthful with you, I turned 40 over the summer, and I kind of had like a little bit of a breakdown as far as thinking about 40 years of my life has already gone by, and what do I want to do with the next 40, because this is kind of the last half of my life in reality. Even though that thought was extremely morbid to me for a little while, I realized that I didn't have to sit in that fear of this being the last 40 years or 50 years of my life, but I could actually think about and be intentional with what I want to do with the next 40 years of my life. So I've listed some of my dreams for myself and what I want to accomplish in this notebook. And this is also something that I review once in a while to see how I'm doing and to kind of just remind myself of what I want for myself, what I want for my life, what I want for my family. So this is like a very exciting kind of motivational list that I keep for myself. So there I shared with you some of my personal checklists and why they're so important to me. So I'd love to hear what type of checklists you keep, or what type of checklist you know you should be keeping. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and like you have so much going on, you can't grasp control of anything, then just get out a piece of paper, write everything down, and go from there. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.